fact, starting off the broadcast with some breaking news that's coming in. U.S. President Joe Biden is in Kyiv, where Press Biden meets President Zelenskyy. And the meet after U.S.'s remarks on China is what we're picking up. So clearly a very significant visit over there. Where we're learning so far is that Biden made it to Kyiv. In fact, he's visiting Poland as well. So obviously, proximity to Ukraine raises a prospect of him. In fact, you can see these pictures as well on your screens of the fact that Joe Biden as well as Zelenskyy can be seen. So it's, of course, a crucial visit. In fact, there was a lot of speculation about him visiting Poland. My colleague Srinjoy joins me live on the broadcast to talk to us more on this front. Srinjoy, very good afternoon. This is significant development that's coming in. But what can you tell us about the fact that U.S. President Joe Biden is in Kyiv at the moment?
Well, first of all, it's very important to know that it's one thing to give tanks like the Abrams or even the rockets like the HIMARS, but it's quite another for the U.S. president himself to be in Kiev. Of course, other leaders have gone. But of all the others, this is very clearly the big moment. The president of the United States, Joe Biden himself, reaching Kiev. It's also a sign. It's also a signal to the world, particularly to Russia, saying that, look here, we are with the Ukrainians. And there is perhaps no better sign of that than the president himself reaching the Ukraine, reaching Kyiv, and being photographed along with Volodymyr Zelenskyy, the Ukrainian president. That is the big moment, really, for the world to see. This is America telling the world, telling Russia particularly, and perhaps also China, that look here, we are here with the Ukraine and this is over the long haul, not just for a day or 2 days or a year. We support Ukraine without any question. That's really the message that's coming out of Biden's visit to Kiev. This was something that had been talked about in the past, never confirmed, but now you have the Biden visit to Kiev, and it's a big moment for the world.
Absolutely, Srinjoy. In fact, as you point that out, in fact, when we did see a few weeks ago when Zelenskyy had actually made that visit to the U.S., after which, of course, he also had got that standing ovation in the Congress. And, of course, speaking about the fact that this is a significant development, like you said, it's a big moment. It's also a lesson out there for Russia, a big message as well. But geopolitically speaking, how do you read into this?
Well, very clearly, when Zelenskyy was in the United States, this definitely came up. And at that time, Biden would have probably assured Zelenskyy that, yes, I will make a visit in the near future. And this, when he makes a visit, everything has to be sorted out before that. So a lot of things have to be done before that. If you've noticed, even before that, this issue about the tanks came up. And the Americans sent their tanks, the Germans sent their tanks, the Dutch are sending their tanks. So all of that has already been taken care of. It also comes at a time, you were speaking about geopolitics, it comes at a time when a Soviet offensive to the east of, in the eastern part of Ukraine, in the Donbas region, is widely expected. So this is a time when a Russian offensive is expected. Now, for Biden to come exactly at this time, when there are missile attacks, when there is a Russian offensive expected, it's very clear that Biden is telling Ukraine, telling Russia, and telling the world that, look here, our support is complete and total, and here I am in Kiev, in complete support of the situation in the Ukraine.
Srinjoy, as you also, of course, get us those important details, we have seen in the past as well, Putin has not really minced his words when it comes to other countries going ahead and providing aid or any sort of support to Ukraine. How do you think one can read into this right now after the fact that you have gone on to state this is a very clear, big, loud message for Russia?
That our support is there. And there is no better way of expressing your support for Zelensky, for the Ukrainians, than landing up yourself. Here is President Biden going all the way to the Ukraine and saying that, look, I'm with you. Of course, we are providing you Abrams tanks. Of course, we are giving you long-range rockets like the HIMARS. Of course, we are giving you ammunition, 155mm ammunition and so on. Of course, we are giving you other equipment. Of course, we are giving you training. But we are with you. So the next issue that will come up is the supply of F-16 fighters. Now, is the American government going to give F-16 fighters that the Ukrainians have been asking for? There are one or two countries with F-16 fighters who are agreed upon, but American clearance will be necessary. And that is really the big one. Because if the Americans say, we are going to give you the F-16 and do so, and however many, then very clearly it will be seen by the Russians as escalation. And if that is so, then what will the Russians do? These are things that have to be taken care of and taken into account. So we'll have to see how that works out. But at this point, you have Biden in Kyiv and Biden telling the world that, look here, I am with the Ukrainians.
You know, Srinjoy, Biden is, of course, what we're picking up so far, is set to meet with his allies to, of course, reassure them of the U.S. commitment to the region and to help Ukraine. Is that the case? What else can we expect in terms of his visit?
Well, also his allies. NATO is a lot of countries, over 20, 25 countries that are part of NATO. And many of the countries do not have completely similar views to what the Americans have. The Americans and the British have been most supportive. There are others who have been a little less supportive. For instance, the Germans took their time about deciding to send the Leopard tank. They have now, but they hadn't for a while. So that was something that the Germans were looking at. This is a way of telling even his allies, even the French, even the Germans, even the Italians, everybody, that look here, I'm with you. It is also a message to these little countries that are actually close part of NATO and right and close to where the conflict zone is, like Romania, for instance, like the 3 Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, that look, I've come all the way to Kyiv. I'm not going to let any of you down.
Srinjoy, as we also talk about these significant developments, what we're also picking up is that Biden is going to be sending a message to Putin during the Ukraine war anniversary speech. In fact, we've also learned that the White House has said that Biden will be giving this speech in Poland.
Yes. Now, we are getting to exactly a year of the war. Now, if that is so, then naturally the world will look at what Biden has to say. Now, is there anything that can be said? Now, as far as Biden is concerned, he is making it very clear that the Russians have to pull out, and the Russians have to pull out immediately. And naturally, the other things will follow. The Ukrainians are also making a point, which is, again, going to be difficult for the Russians to accept. The fact that all Ukrainian territory taken by the Russians, not just this time, but earlier, and this is in reference to the Crimea, have to be returned. Now, is Russia going to return the Crimea? That is a big issue. And the Russians may not be keen to do it at all under any circumstances. So as a result, there is no likelihood of the war quickly ending at this point, unless one of the two sides sits down, backs down, and says, okay, we have to talk. Now, we have not arrived at that kind of situation. Neither the Ukrainians nor the Russians have said that, yes, we want to talk. There has been a lot of talk about the peace process happening. But at this point, there seems to be no solution, because the Ukrainians say that you have to leave every bit of Ukrainian territory, and that includes the Crimea. Now the Russians are not going to agree. So if that is where we are, the war will continue. Now this is an exhaustive process. Hundreds of people have died in the war. Civilians, of course, soldiers of Russian and Ukrainian. And the terrible thing is that at this point, a renewed Russian offensive is expected. Russia has done conscription of a certain kind. 300,000 soldiers have joined the Russian army. They are not like brilliantly trained. They are not as good as their special forces, Spetsnaz or whatever. But they are still soldiers. They still have rifles and so on. So with that, a Russian offensive, a spring offensive is possible. At least the West is expecting that. The Ukrainians are expecting that.
Right, Srinjoy, thank you very much for getting us those details. But